Hi, it's Steve Manobianco at PSG Life Sciences, and we're excited to be in CYTO, Philadelphia, attending the BioBuzz Bio Innovation Series. Now, it's pretty exciting. This is the first of 8 programs they'll be running here in Philadelphia. And for the next hour or so, we're going to be interviewing the people that make up the fabric and the base of the research and all the exciting things that are happening in Philadelphia. So stay tuned and enjoy the conversation. We're here, joining us now is Mark Haggerty with Chymanox, and we're here again at the CYTO event in Philadelphia. And Mark, just trying to get an understanding of what was your motivation, a little bit about your background, but what was your motivation to get into biotech and life sciences? What's behind that?
Yeah, biotech has been my career. I started as a mechanical engineer. And like many white-eyed mechanical engineers, I figured I would design race cars or do something.
Formula One, there you go.
Do something amazing like that. But I interned at a medical device company out of college, and that kind of just started my career path through medical devices into pharmaceuticals, kind of into the drug development space. And now at Chymanox, we do a little bit of both those things. So it's been an amazing landing point for me. To get to combine, my love of devices also with the drug development space and biotech, medtech, everything kind of in between.
So if you had to go back and give yourself advice early in your career, go back to your colleges. Where'd you go to college, by the way?
Minnesota.
Minnesota. So if you had to go back and say, hey, Mark, in your freshman year, based on what you know now, what type of advice would you give them?
Yeah.
To be in your space right now, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, I probably could have spent some more time in the library, like most young men should have. I mean, to work in this space, I think it's nice to have a scientific background. It's nice to have a passion for the scientific and for the curiosity. I think I would have told myself to stay curious and to absorb as much information as as you can in that time. There's so much that happens so quickly in our industry. There's so much science being developed, day in and day out. I think the more of that information you can absorb.
Well, yeah, especially if you just look out the window of Philadelphia, this epicenter of significant advanced therapies, and every day there's something coming out of a lab, which is kind of, again, I always knock on wood. I never took a biology course, and I'm always amazed. I've been in this industry for 30 years, and I'm always amazed that every day there's something new and exciting coming out. So it's pretty crazy. So.
Yeah, we heard some amazing stories last night from a speaker talking about some of the advancements in cell therapy for liquid and solid tumors, and just the excitement and the direction that's headed towards these crazy ideas of curing diseases that haven't been able to be cured ever, or even such a broad basis of application. Almost unfathomable. So similar to something like GLP-1 and weight loss, where this magic pill that we thought could exist in the future exists now.
They're here,
right? It's an injection. It's not quite a pill, but we're getting there. And that was some of the messaging that we heard out of Penn and out of some of the innovations here. And that was, that's exciting.
So you mentioned, Penn and the local. So why Philadelphia? Why now? What's your opinion on that?
I think that leads into a lot of the things we were hearing about in cell therapies and in the advancements. That's cell and gene therapy in general, right? The conversation around that has always been, how do you commercialize it? How do you bring it to the masses? I think Philadelphia is on the cutting edge of creating the science that's necessary to do that, because the numbers don't number right now, and so it's. Maybe in my opinion, I would say it's a problem that science still needs to solve. Yeah. And it feels like some of that's being developed here, and that if someone's going to develop it, I wouldn't be surprised if they were from Philadelphia.
Got it. No, good point. So speaking about, this weekend, we have an interesting event that's affecting Philadelphia.
Yeah,
so
I've seen plenty of billboards.
Yeah, and you have to be careful what you say.
Yeah.
Okay, you have to remember where you are. What's your prediction on the Super Bowl?
Yeah. Gosh. Yeah. I'm not pro Chiefs. I wouldn't classify myself as pro Eagles either.
Oh, okay.
I've have a few stinging defeats in my own back pocket of my own favorite teams at the hands of the Eagles, but I think it'll be a shootout. I think Saquon goes for over 200, and I think the Eagles win if you put me under the gun, I'd say 31-28.
There you go. So Mark, that's the prediction there.
Yeah.
So all your odds makers out there, make sure you look at that. Well,
Yeah.
good. Well, by the time this is published, we'll probably know the results. We'll see how your prediction was
we'll
there.
See.
Well, good. Hey, well, Mark, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it. Good. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Hi, we're being joined by Eric Berquist with BioCare. And Eric, just sort of to start the conversation off, I mean, we're here at this life science event here at BioBuzz. How did you get into the life sciences sector? What's your story?
Sure. So it's actually a pretty personal story. So my son was born with Pallister-Killian syndrome, which is a very rare chromosome disorder. There's about 300 kids at the time in the world diagnosed with it. So based on my personal experience, life experience with that and with PKS, I was drawn to this side of the industry, looking to help all of those kids with special needs, or even those as it expands into cancer, et cetera, to move the product that's very important to the research globally through logistics.
Interesting that some of the folks we talked to earlier, there was a sort of a common thread that it was, the better good. There was either some personal story or some, I want to be involved with something that's bigger than me, or I could see an impact somewhere to people at the personal level. And if you had to go back in time, I guess, so where'd you go to school, by the way?
So I went to East Carolina University.
Okay.
Yeah, in Greenville, North Carolina.
So if you had to go back to yourself at that time, roll the clock back, a time machine, what advice would you give to yourself about how to advance as a profession in this industry? What advice would you give yourself?
So at that time, there really wasn't dedicated supply chain degrees, right? When I went through college many moons ago. So I would probably say just continue to study what you're passionate about, because eventually you're going to end up where you should be. In my case, for example, with logistics. I mean, I have a degree in history and political science, but because of the international exposure that I had throughout my education, it led me into to the field that I'm in now.
Yeah, and you made a good point. Now some universities have a logistics program.
There's a lot of supply chain degrees, good universities, absolutely.
And this is a subset of that whole space. So, we're here in Philadelphia, and from your perspective, why Philly and why now?
Why Philly? So there's a lot of investment in this space in biotech in Philly. One of my daughters actually went to Drexel University right here, and so they've been investing a lot in this space. And so I've known about it through her experience here at Drexel, and then just the media buzz around it as well.
Yeah, interesting you say that, because for years folks always said the ecosystem was here, but the money wasn't here, and now we have both, which is great. The money is here now. So if you look around to it, where you're getting information and insights on the industry, what recommendations should you make to either events to attend or books to read or podcasts to listen to? Any insights on that you can share?
So, there's always stuff in the mainstream media. Actually, the Philadelphia Business Journal is a good resource because they cover not only this space, but many others, and those that are attached to it. So from a local source, you have that. I mean, there's always something in the news about, like, for example, a company like CRISPR and genetic engineering. Right. So I think if you just keep your eyes and ears open, you're going to hear a lot of information in mainstream media, which is where a lot of people get.
Yeah, it's a good start. Then you could bird dog and go deeper in there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I know we're coming up to this is a big weekend with the Super Bowl. So any predictions for that?
Well, since I have two kids that live in Philadelphia, I have to say, fly Eagles fly for sure.
Well, good. Well, Eric, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Good.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Joined now by Chris Atkins from Comminox, and we're again here in Philadelphia. And so just to warm things up, so Chris, why don't you give a quick background, but how did you get into life sciences?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a classically trained mechanical engineer, which is not normally the road that one takes to get into, biotechnology as a background. I really stumbled into the industry coming out of undergrad. Believe it or not, I managed to go to school at NC State and come out into RTP and not even be aware that pharmaceuticals was all around me in my backyard. And then landed a job at Novartis working in drug substance technical development. Right, making phase 1, phase 2, actually worked on an RSV vaccine that was commercially approved by GSK now about 4 years ago. So I'm batting 1,000 on development projects. I don't work in development anymore because the odds aren't supposed to be quite that good. And then kind of went from there and worked through the industry on the supplier side of critical components, both in drug substance and drug product, and then landed here at Cheminox. But really the kind of commonality throughout that is having really a genuinely greater purpose to what you do in work than just showing up and turning pages and things like that.
Yeah, so
right?
a lot of folks I know in our industry, it's that it was something bigger than there's an end game. It's just like I'm pushing paper. I know, hey, if something I'm working on or I'm involved in gets to a patient, I could be part of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Where do you go to school, by the way?
NC State University in Raleigh.
Oh, you were there. Yeah, and that RTP is a hotbed, and it's a good mix. There's medical device as well as biopharma.
Correct.
In that market.
Correct. Right.
So,
and even some some kind of prolific small molecule manufacturing and filling, right? Still in kind of the greater RTP area.
So it's pretty diverse then with the CDMOs too.
It is.
So if you had to go to campus and give advice to others like yourself who are looking at a career in the life sciences, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are a tremendous number of folks who come out and really understand the science really, really well, but managing to mix that with the interpersonal communication, leadership skills, things like that. So spending time presenting and speaking in front of a room, right? Doing that on a regular basis. Most decent and above presenters are not born, they're made. Right? Every now and then someone has a particular gift for it, but even then practice really can encourage and can make them better. And so figuring that out as soon as you can, right, in your development, I think can have a really enormous long-term career ramifications, right? So that would be my kind of general advice to most folks who are already studying the science and already kind of considering this career pathway. And then the advice for someone like me would be, hey, you don't have to have it for your degree, but maybe take some organic chemistry and some other advanced chemistry classes. And stopping at Chem 2 is a bit of a limiting factor for me nowadays.
It's interesting you said, because many times people they think it's going to be just bench work.
Yeah.
But there's a whole nother flip side is on the business side. That I think that's a good point of letting people know that there's other career paths.
Well, and whether you want to go into business, like myself, or even if you want to stay internal to your company, you have to be able to present your work. You have to be able to talk, confidently and competently, both to leadership that's in your direct technical vertical, but also folks who are parallel to you, right? So the formulation scientist has to be able to talk to the fill finish operating team and be able to relate to each other and present why, no, I can't just get the viscosity below, 30 centipoi, so it's easier for you to fill. There's a little more to it than that, right?
So you came up from RTP. So why Philly and why now?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had a presence in Philadelphia for a number of years. We have an office, here local that's really focused around our, drug delivery considerations.
Physically, where's it at?
In King of Prussia.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're up here pretty frequently for that. But what really excites us, and it's a similar thing that excites us in RTP, in kind of the three major universities there, but we really see that the industry goes where the science is, right? So the excellent work here that's coming out of Penn, the things that has this really known as a hotbed in the advanced therapies world, right? Probably I think probably unquestionably the world expertise in cell therapy sits in Philadelphia as a whole. And so we're really excited about that and in supporting and partnering for those products to go from just the academic bench to being successfully commercialized where they can impact patients.
You talked about a lot of rapid changes happening right now. Is there anything you could recommend for either a podcast, a website, and a networking event that you can go to keep current on some of the rapid changes in the market?
No, that's a really good question. The first answer has got to be I'm a little biased. I host our Life Science Solutions podcast, so take a look on that wherever you listen to your podcast. Beyond that, I think it is really easy to underestimate all of the amazing work that's being done by some of the industry-leading, nonprofit groups, ISPE, PDA. We were at an ISPE event last night, and they talked about their recent publication in autologous and cell therapy development.
So it's a combination of listening and getting out there, because networking events post-COVID are some of the best places to have a conversation.
Absolutely, right? And read some of these standards reports that the industry experts are putting out there, available for free, right?
So one last question. This weekend we have the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
So what's your prediction for the Super Bowl?
Yeah, oh man. I don't even know that it's as much prediction, and I'm gonna hopefully be out of Philadelphia before this airs, because otherwise I'm probably gonna get
stay away from the poll.
I'm gonna get destroyed. But personally, in sports, whenever I don't have a biased interest, and as far as I'm concerned, we don't have a professional football team in North Carolina. We essentially don't. We have a joke of one right now. So, but I do like to watch greatness, right? So I've really enjoyed watching LeBron James over his career in basketball, and then as we see what Steph Curry and some others have been able to accomplish. So I think it would be a treat to get to watch a three-peat, right? And that's my leaning. I think if you watch the Chiefs play this season, they have eked out so many one-score wins because of that kind of dynamic. We'll see. Maybe Saquon brings something that kind of changes the equation. But I'll follow the lead and take an off-the-wall prediction, and I'm going to say 45-21 Chiefs.
Interesting.
So I do think it's going to be a shootout.
Well, be careful when you leave the room. This is Philadelphia, so you have to.
We're not going to tell anyone about that tonight, right? We can just keep that to us until this gets published.
This won't be published before this weekend. So
okay. All right.
Well, good,
the
Chris,
city is green. So
good, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks. So here we are again at the BioBuzz event. And why don't you take a second and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Eric Hackrell. I'm Chief Operating Officer for CYTO Therapeutics, which is a, at the moment, virtual therapeutic startup company. We work with stem cells. We genetically modify stem cells, targeting a variety of different diseases. And we are virtual. We're setting up shop here in Philadelphia in the Biolabs incubator.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's 5 of us right now who are focusing on lifting this company up. And I have 25 years of biotech experience.
So stay there. Let's go back. Go back to the beginning there. Go back to your. When did you get into the Biotech Life Sciences? How did that happen?
Life sciences. So I was an engineer. I was doing my PhD in environmental. In chemical engineering, but focused on environmental. But I was funded by NIH through a fellowship that required an internship. And the program that I was part of lined up the companies that were providing internships. So I started at Merck as a summer intern.
In environmental work there?
No, in just chemical engineering.
Okay,
so in drug development. And that was probably halfway through my PhD. So I stayed connected to the folks I met at Merck, and was able to leverage that into a job coming out of my my PhD.
Was there, even before that, was there a motivation for you to say, listen, chemical engineering, was there a path before that motivated you as a youngster?
I applied to the NIH fellowship because I was interested in healthcare. But at the time I wasn't thinking of totally pivoting my career. It was immunology was a field that I was very interested in, but I was still focused on environmental engineering. And my research for my PhD was environmental engineering, but the fellowship brought me into a lot of biotech classes and exposure to big pharma companies, and so it all kind of blossomed.
So when it seemed like you did came through the academic route, then you went into the big pharma, and now with entrepreneurial. What advice could you give to folks on who want to make a move into biotech, knowing because you've done the 360,
Yeah.
Academia, big pharma, startup biotech. What advice could you give to someone to sort of get the bumps out of the way?
What was really helpful to me, and I didn't know it at the time, and it was just sort of my random walk through my career, but working for a big pharma was great because I could do different jobs. And I did each job for several years, 3, 4, 6 years, but I got a lot of broad exposure. And I feel like a lot of people, especially during COVID, when people were job jumping and getting promotions, they were really focused on title and not experience. my career just gave me a huge breadth of experience that I rely on today, having seen so many different supply chain, manufacturing, research and development. You know, I've covered so many bases that I can tackle a lot of problems today that come at me that I might not have been able to tackle if I rapidly went through my career in one
It's
channel.
interesting to say, 'cause even at Merck, a supply chain issue could be very, you know, it's the same problem you have to solve even with your startup company. How do you get that reagent in? How do we get it in the door? How do we get it out? Yeah, that's an interesting place. So it's really that life experience that kept you going here. So from here though, let's go to the next step. You know, how do you stay abreast of, you know, what do you listen to? What do you read? What events do you go to for someone who's trying to keep current with what's going on in the market right now?
I really leverage events like the BioBuzz event that I'm at here, the networking events, to stay current.
So the FaceTime is important.
Journal articles are really deep, and it's really hard to stay current with those with the amount of time that I have. There's leadership books and podcasts, but I really don't learn well from listening to people or reading people. I learn well from meeting people and being able to ask questions and follow on questions. So I really leverage all the face-to-face opportunities that I can at these events, and then following up, hey, let's get lunch. You want to get coffee, you know, with some of the people that I meet to try to explore further.
No, good. So that's good. That's good advice. You know, and you have to start that. The earlier you start that in the career, the better, because those relations turn them to opportunities down the road eventually.
I realized that very late in my career, and once I realized it, I realized how far behind I was, and really networking from day one.
Everyone told me you should play golf. I didn't play golf, and they said you should play golf. It's going to pay off in the long run. I said, well, I didn't do that. But.
I'm not a good golfer. I never really played golf, but carry on a conversation.
So the next question, and it's because why Philly right now? And you're a perfect person to ask the question because you are starting in Philly right now. So why Philly and why
Yeah,
now?
we're starting this company up in Philly. I mean, Philly has the eds and meds, they say. So, you know, all the educational institutions, all the science that you could possibly want to grab onto. You have places to run clinical studies with all the hospitals around,
in walking
and
distance,
also experts in walking distance. Great incubators. So Philly really built up the incubators 5 years ago in response to, you know, the early part of the pandemic when a lot of money was going into biotech. They built a lot of these incubators, and you can get a bench fairly inexpensively, a lab bench, and start your research, which is exactly what we're doing.
So compared to
at
Boston,
CYTO,
San Francisco, San Diego, the price point's much better.
The cost is right. Yeah, the cost is right. And then there's so much talent around here, and we don't get credit for that. But you have big pharma all around. You know, you have Merck and GSK right in the area. But you have in New Jersey, you're pulling from all kinds of talent. Roche here now in Philly through the Spark acquisition. There's tons of talent here that is just, you know, it's not recognized, but it's there. It's not hard to fill positions, even very technical positions here in Philly.
Got it.
Yeah, so this is
great.
the place
Yeah,
to
it's
be.
location, right?
Absolutely,
That's great.
absolutely.
So we're in Philly and it's Super Bowl weekend. So what's your prediction?
Let's hunt.
What's your prediction?
Oh, it's going to be the birds.
Right, all right.
It's going to be the birds.
Well, good. Hey,
Absolutely.
good luck, and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah,
Good.
it's great meeting you.
Good. Well, great. We're being joined by Kelly Zacchio. It's good to meet you.
Thank you. It's nice to
Good.
meet you too.
Good. So before we start, why don't you do a quick intro, a little background about yourself?
So I'm from Scranton, Pennsylvania, not too far. And I just finished my PhD in biomedical engineering at Drexel. I'm looking to stay in the Philadelphia area where I've been learning a lot about the life science scene that we have here.
So Kelly, what was the point in your life that you woke up one day and said, gee, I'm going to be a PhD? And what happened? How did that happen?
So it wasn't till a lot later in my academic career. But I originally wanted to be a physician. Scranton's a small blue-collar town. There's a lot of hospitals, and I thought I'm interested in human physiology. I'll be a physician. But while I was in undergrad at University of Scranton, I was taking a lot of math classes. And it's actually the math department sort of put me into these opportunities where I could do biomathematics research, which I had never thought about before. And while I was at Smith College completing a the women in mathematics course getting a certificate in math, that's when I thought I do love math, but if I could go back in time, I would do biomedical engineering. And it just so happened that the head of Drexel's biomedical engineering program was going to be at Smith 3 days from when I Googled Smithy at Drexel to see if there was someone I could reach out to. And I realized that I had the skills to be able to go into biomedical engineering, even with just the math background, no research background. And I thought, this is the way that I want to contribute to healthcare. I don't just need to be a physician. There are other areas where I can improve life sciences, improve healthcare.
And I know we talked before we started, and you mentioned that you've completed your PhD, but now you're looking really to go into business, into the business side. So talk about that, but also share for others that might be in the same situation, that they're bench scientists, but of that pivot point, say, hey, I want to take my PhD and leverage it even in another area. So can you share that?
Right. So I think you spend so much time in the lab that you think, this is what I'm going to do forever. I'll just be in the lab forever. But when you get out and start networking and learning about what other people have done after their PhDs and what areas there are for you to be involved in, you realize that the skills that you've developed within your PhD go way beyond the bench. You've managed a project, you've likely mentored a lot of undergraduate students, you've had to manage your time, you've had to deal with a lot of adversity, a lot of experiments gone bad, a lot of timelines, a lot of writing grants, a lot of writing papers, TAing, teaching. You get a lot of skills that you don't look at outside of the hard lab skills that you've done. And so you realize that I can offer my background and my knowledge of how laboratory experiments work in other areas. And the skills that I have are applicable to things outside of the bench.
And we're here at this event, this great event by BioBuzz here in Philly, and you just coming out of Drexel in Philly. Why Philly and why now?
I've learned to love Philly. I mean, I lived in New York City before I moved to Philly, and I can say Philly has much more of a community feel. A lot of these events that I've gone to that are put on by the local life sciences scene, a lot of the incubators, you see a lot of the same people around. So it's a lot of the same people that are trying to advance life sciences in Philadelphia that care a lot about the city. So while the city is big, it's walkable and it has a really small town feel. Yeah,
it's funny. If you look at one of the videos we did before, I use that same term. It's like there's like a community within the biotech side. It's like a very small. You feel like in a small town. You see people at the post office. You see them, literally in the corner. But that's great. It's a good. Now, even though you seem like you've done your PhD, but you've been keeping abreast of things outside in the market. What what recommendations do you make for someone who's in the same role? Say, listen, I'm looking at career opportunities. Where do you go? What events do you go to? What do you read? What do you listen to? What can you share with that?
Honestly, when I first knew that I needed to start getting out to networking events, the first thing I found was a data and AI sciences meetup, happy hour, just a happy hour. And I didn't know that different
existed?
groups,
Yeah,
I didn't
right.
know that people
They
interested.
get together? Yeah.
Exactly. I was trying to learn AI was in everything. And I was like, I need to get up to speed on this. So going from there and then talking to people about what you're interested in, someone knows someone that they can put you in touch with. And I think that people need to be comfortable reaching out to people, because what you find is that most people have been in the same position that you've been in, and everyone's willing to help. I haven't come across anyone who wasn't willing to lend some time to me just to tell me about their career path or things that they did. Sometimes people at the end of our conversations, they say, I don't know if that helps you in any sort of way. And it does. Every conversation I've had with people about the pathway that they took, the challenges that they had, the things that they did to get them to where
They're
they
willing
are,
to help
the
out and
advice
say,
that they have,
that's
it's all
great.
been helpful.
So I know it's Super Bowl weekend.
It is.
All right, we're in Philadelphia. And so what's your prediction for this weekend?
My prediction or my hopeful outcome?
Well, you can do both. Let's do both.
Let's say we'll take the Eagle. A slight margin. I think it'll be an exciting game.
My name is Lauren Walrath. I am currently head of Bursting Communications and Advocacy, and we're a fractional communications consultancy, helping early stage and preclinical companies kind of spread the word and grow relationships that are important to scaling their business.
Good, Lauren. Good. Thanks for joining today. So, a question for you. Maybe give a little background. How did you get into biotech and life sciences? How did that happen?
So I started in Bristol Myers Squibb in 2006, coming right out of business school. And I had a wonderful woman who recognized the need in their drug development group to really improve communications. They were about to undergo a lot of change. And she wanted somebody to come in and really assist with a lot of internal employee engagement and innovation work. And so that was my first entree into life sciences. And I've now spent about 20 years working with some really innovative companies.
That's interesting because some of these companies they're very good marketing arms externally, but their internal PR is terrible.
Yep.
You know. Now, if you had to go back when you were either in college, if you had to go give yourself advice how to accelerate your career to into this space, what advice would you give yourself?
It's an interesting space. There's a lot of different cycles. And I think part of being successful in this space is staying on top of what is new. It is an innovation-driven industry. And if you're following what's being introduced out of the labs, what's getting funded, I think you'll follow where the innovation is happening. And there's always new cycles of innovation and energy coming in the industry. So I think that that's really my tip. I was told really, again, from the start of my pharma career, learn what's in the pipeline. And I think that that's really strong advice.
So, I mean, okay, so you're saying a little homework, do some research, and go a little deeper. You have to really always be a student, I guess, right?
Always be a student.
Right.
Intellectual curiosity is a sort of really critical success factor, I guess, in pharma.
And could you make any recommendations of where could you absorb information? You talked about maybe researching, or what are some other avenues that you use to try and keep abreast of what's going on in the marketplace?
Yeah, there's a couple of really great newsletters and publications. I mean, staying up with endpoints, staying up with STAT, looking every day, I guess, a little bit at what's coming out in the news. The breaking news is always helpful. And I actually want to give a shout out to the BioBuzz group. We were just talking about LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is becoming a really rich resource for staying current on pharma news. And I think BioBuzz does a great job of synthesizing from across their geographies and really giving everybody a little bit of a top line.
I agree with you there. I think between the sense of community and then networks like we're at today.
Yeah.
Are very good, because I always find the face-to-face is so much better.
So much better.
Of making a connection, getting to know people, and finding a common ground. So, I know you're a big advocate of Philadelphia.
Yay!
So, why Philly and why now?
So yeah, I'm a Philly girl. Just actually met somebody I probably grew up 5 blocks away from, right outside the door there.
What part of town you grew up in?
Well, I grew up in Bucks County.
Okay, close enough.
Close enough, but I am an Eagles season ticket holder, so exciting times in Philadelphia. But no, Philadelphia is great. I think it's a really closely connected city. I think whether you grew up in Bucks County or you grew up in Lower Merion, everybody kind of knows each other. And people really love running into each other around Philadelphia. So I think if we can breed on that energy and really build around that network, and they were saying just in the room, that we really need to do more of that here. We need to embrace that science is learning, and you're always learning when you're in conversation with one another, when you're at events like this and meeting with one another. So if we can do more of that together, I think Philly has enormous opportunity.
Yeah, and I think groups like BioBuzz, I do agree, I like these smaller events where you don't have 10,000 people, so less than 100 people, you can have a conversation, meet people, and then you start to build relationships, So I think you already answered the question, but I have to ask, this is Super Bowl weekend.
Yes.
So what's your prediction?
So I'm representing Section 121 from the link, and my prediction is definitely an Eagles win.
There you
I'm
go.
feeling good this year. But no, I think we have a lot of really good energy going into the Super Bowl. I think the team's been amazing. And I'm going to follow all of my good luck traditions. We had a good luck tradition in 2017. We started at Reading Terminal. Tons of Eagles shout outs, tons of Eagles chants, EAGLES,
There you
all the
go.
way through. And then we head over to my sisters, so we're going to watch
Good for
there.
you. Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, good. Thanks for joining us today. It's great.
All right.
Good, thanks. So we're joined with Heather Rose here at the BioBuzz event today. Welcome. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Good,
Thanks for having
good,
me. It's
good.
nice to see you.
So I guess just to start the conversation, why don't you give us your story? How did you get into life sciences? What's the story? What's the motivation story behind that?
I guess the motivation is a long-standing love of science. So it actually started with my grandfather, Dr. Alfred Mintz, who actually went to Penn and then Jefferson. I keep his microscope in my office.
So you have deep roots in the fabric here. Interesting. Okay, didn't know that.
Yeah, so my grandfather actually graduated from Jefferson in 1943. And I keep his microscope in my office next to a letter from Jefferson telling him that he was being admitted to their medical program, but he would have to buy a microscope because of the war. They had a dearth of microscopes, so he had to buy.
And that's the microscope.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a great story.
Yeah.
Now, if you had to give, so you had, I guess it was more motivation, family. You know, if you had to give advice to others looking to get into life sciences and biotech, what would you kind of advice would you give them?
Can't fake it, you gotta love it.
Right.
Can't fake
So
it,
it's
you
really
gotta love
it's a
it.
motivation and anything else around that you could share?
Well, I think where we exist, the we being the people in this room, the people that are in this industry, I think what we're doing is trying to be the midwives that catch the baby.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I think that there's scientists doing great science, and then we're trying to catch that. That's the baby we're trying to catch, and
Yeah.
we're trying to get it to college.
Yep.
So I think what we're trying to do is complete the ecosystem, and I think there's a whole other side to the equation of what science is, and we're trying to be a different kind of scientist. So I think you've got to absolutely truly love science, and you've got to be a kind of different kind of thinker about the way science
And you've made the
is.
transition from the bench to business.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah. So yeah, I went to Penn's medical school and got a PhD in gene therapy, molecular biology, but I studied delivery of therapeutic gene doses in gene therapy there. And then I went to law school, became a patent attorney, and then I have,
So you did the long road to the business. You did the legal piece, which is good. And today IP is an important part of this whole space here.
It's an essential.
Interesting.
essential part.
Essential part, right?
Maybe I'm
So-
self-serving.
So I know the question, and I think you might have a more unique insight to this, just due to your family lineage. So why Philadelphia and why now?
I mean, Philadelphia is essential to what is happening at the forefront of precision medicine, cell gene therapy, immunotherapies. We are at the cutting edge of how cell and gene therapy and immunotherapies are evolving, and it's because of the critical mass of the academic institutions and the health centers that are the powerhouses here, and then they are bringing these amazing students that are thankfully many times staying and creating these great companies. I mean, we are creating this amazing ecosystem that is spinning out these great institutions like Spark, these great institutions that are creating, places just right next door that are
Yeah, and that's
building
interesting you say that, because
infrastructure.
that's the part that's really of interest is creating the ecosystem where we're nurturing it and people stay here.
Yeah.
And it brings, and then for every industry, every startup, then you have to have service providers and you have others. So it just
That's
builds,
exactly right. Yeah.
it builds the whole thing.
Yeah,
So-
the excitement's growing, but it's growing for a reason, right? This is not manufactured, right?
Correct.
We have these health centers, and the health centers are bringing patients that need care. The patients that need care are bringing us this information that we need about how to provide better care.
Now, I know I've seen you over the past several years at a lot of different events, right? You're very good at networking, you're out there, and if you had to give others advice on, hey, where could they learn and get connected to the Philadelphia community? What should they be reading? What should they be listening to? What events should they be going to?
So read the publications. Read the publications coming out of the labs. Go to PubMed. So
Okay,
go
that's
to
a start.
PubMed.
That's a start, a basic
right?
start.
Go to Grantome and see who's getting the most grants, right? I mean, really, I think sometimes it's the obvious stuff, right? Like,
But what about that beyond that? What about like here to say I really want to know what's going on in the fabric in Philadelphia? What should they be doing?
I think events like this, the stuff that's popping up all the time, there's a ton of great networking opportunities in Philadelphia. Our practical knowledge series. I hope you don't mind me plugging the Biostrategy Partners Practical Knowledge series that we put on their free events. They pop up all over the place, where we like to teach people how to translate technologies, stuff like what B Labs is putting on right now. Anything available to the public. I mean, these are free events, and the entire intent is to draw people to this region. Yeah. Educate people and excite people about this region, because we know that the better this region is, the better everybody is. Right. As we're pulling up the network of this region.
No, that's good. I'm glad you said it, because I do appreciate in Philly a lot of smaller focused events, and there's a lot of them going on. So the big question, and the last question I have for you is, this is Super Bowl weekend. So what's your prediction for this weekend?
No matter what happens, the people of Philadelphia, whether things go our way, or goodness forbid or not, the people of Philadelphia will comport themselves with poise and dignity.
Well, good. Hey, Heather, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it. Good. Thanks.
Thank you.
So we're being joined now by Matt Giorgio of Choice Med Waste, and hey, thanks for joining us today.
Appreciate it.
Great. We're at the BioBuzz event here in Philadelphia, and we just talked to some of the folks and getting their input on a little bit of the background, but how did you get into the life sciences space? What's the story on that for your personal trajectory to get into life sciences?
Yeah, so our family's always been small business focused. We've been in the waste management industry now for 40 plus years, and we started in the healthcare side doing sharps biohazard waste for a lot of healthcare clients, and just probably about 5 years ago, when the life sciences and biotech was really starting out, we worked with our first incubator that wasn't happy with our current waste provider, and once you got one, I'm sure this network's pretty tight.
That's right.
They kind of just refer you to the next one and the next one and the next one, and now life sciences and biotech is one of our largest industries we service, and we really enjoy it.
It's a good transition. You went to medical, so you went upstream into the drug discovery.
Yep.
That's good.
And we still do some medical. It's probably about half and half now.
So you got there sort of organically, right? But if you had to give someone advice who's looking at or thinking about, or maybe you never thought about getting into the industry, into the life sciences space, what advice would you give them?
I think networking in this industry is crucial. There's so many events out there, especially now, as I'm sure that are well attended. You never know what vendor, what lab, what researcher, what lab operations team, where there's an opportunity where you fit in. And I think that's probably one of the craziest things of us being involved in the life sciences side, is that it touches so many different things that you're not ready for. The healthcare is kind of very specific, and it's been very traditional of, here's vendors that service healthcare, here's people who work in healthcare, but the life sciences, has such a broader spectrum. So be open, think creatively.
It's interesting you say it, because doctors, even though they're diverse, they're similar in office and so forth, but in the biotech research, it's so broad and deep. It's you're right. And plus, you made a good point. FaceTime is real important today. Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the nature of the business. People are more willing to hear your background and learn a little bit more, because there is such a diverse background in the life sciences space of different, not only people, but task and research and all those other things that are involved in the life sciences community.
And now, did you born and raised Delaware? Is that your back? Okay.
Pretty much. My parents live in Pennsylvania, right over the line, but went to school in Delaware, so we like to say born and raised in Delaware.
Got it. Right. Is there anything else? I mean, you talked about networking. Anything could someone prepare themselves to really, stay abreast or keep up on all the changes that are going on here?
I think listening is probably one of the crucial things. There's a lot of times where you go out and you meet people and it's always, hey, this is my career path, this is what I've done, or this is what I do. But until you start listening to either challenges of someone else or what's coming new in the industry, you're not going to have that open approach of figuring out, hey, let me be a problem solver instead of someone who's just pitching their own solution. So you want to be able to come up with a new solution rather than the same old solution every single time. And that's what we really pride ourselves on. We treat every customer as a customized service.
So
it's never one size fits all. And I'm sure you know that that's impossible in this industry.
Yeah, because every sample coming in is different than the other sample going out, and how they use it. And interesting. So you're in the Delaware Valley. So what's your prediction for the weekend with the Super Bowl?
Go Birds,
Right,
all the way. I mean, obviously you got to give the Chiefs the respect they have, but I think this team is gelling on all levels. And I think we've got the trenches, which is really what matters, I think.
Yeah. And it's interesting to see the second half is always the Eagles' strength, the later part. So this should be an exciting.
Yeah, I think we keep them close. We'll be able to run the ball for that second half, and that's going to be crucial.
Well, good. Well, Matt, good. Have a good weekend. We appreciate you
it.
coming in. Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Good.
Have a
Take
good one.
care. Thank you. Hi, we're being joined by Patricia Sau right now. And Patricia, thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Steve, for inviting me.
Yeah, so what we're looking for is sort of your story. I mean, how did you get into the life sciences biotech space?
Actually, that's kind of like a family tradition because most of my parents are MDs.
Oh,
And
okay.
Yes.
But you're a researcher,
Right.
not a physician. So you decided to go on the research track versus the physician side, correct?
Yes, that's. I was a neurologist, and then a lot of diseases are related with immunology. And at that time, I was practicing in China, and then I was like, okay, I need to know why. Yes, I can treat patients, but I want to know why these things happens. So, and there's chance to come to the United States to do the research, and I came here get into a graduate program, which is to start from the really beginning, right, and to try to learn that all the mechanisms of the immunology, and I just like it.
So you
It's
went
very
from
interesting.
treating to curing, right? That's good. So that's a good.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
So now, if you had what advice would you give to someone, either who's looking at a career or options in life sciences? What advice would you give to them?
It's exciting, I would say. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to begin with because to be a good life scientist, you not only have to be really smart to know the theories, to understand mechanisms. Meantime, you have to be good on doing things like running experiment, knows how to get the correct results. And but that's the challenging. That's the part of why the life science is so interesting. Plus, as you just said, right now the life science is advanced so much that especially like personal medicine.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, personalized. Yeah.
Right. So we can, even as a life scientist, we are really related to treat the patient and try to cure the disease, which makes you feel really good.
Now, you said something that other researchers said to me. What differentiates an average researcher from a rock star is it's sort of like the artist. So we're dealing with the same palette and the same reagents and the same information, but it's that artistic piece and creative piece that makes it happen.
Yes.
And so that's an interesting. So now we're in Philadelphia, and you've been in Philadelphia. How long have you been in Philly?
Oh, 30 years.
So Philadelphia is a real hotbed right now. So why Philadelphia and why now?
Okay, I'm partial to this question, right? Because I used to work at University of Pennsylvania, and University of Pennsylvania has such a strong research basis. Like Carl June is for the CAR T, and James Wilson is for gene therapy. Because of their research, that Philadelphia attract a lot of biopharma companies to start up to do. It's convenient, and then Meanwhile, you have all this support scientifically.
You have the talent, you have the patients, you have and now the money, which is good also, right?
Oh yes, and there are so many like national famous scientists in Philadelphia. So, and meanwhile, Philadelphia government, city government is really trying to help the biopharma industry.
Yeah, doing a lot of workforce development. There's a lot of interesting things happening in Philly. And you touched on something. So if and you and I talked in the past about this, about individual advancement. How do I either manage up, be a better leader, manage people, communicate more effectively? Any recommendations you give to folks like that can, how can they be better at either managing their boss or managing their staff or just being a better communicator in their career?
I would say don't afraid, just go communicate. If you have some questions or if there's some small conflicts or something, even you have something like a question mark to say, what's going on here? I don't feel very comfortable, right? The best way to solve the problem is go nicely, diplomatically to talk to the person. And then that will help a lot of problems overdevelop.
Yep. So be confident in your communication as you're developing. All right. So again, this is a big weekend in Philadelphia.
Yes.
For Philadelphia. So
Yes.
what's your prediction for the Super Bowl?
Of course, Eagle will be win.
Well, good. Hey, Patricia, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate your time. Good.
Thank you so very
much.
much.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, we're being joined by Maury Smith. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for
Good.
having me.
Good.
Yeah.
So, Maury, before we get started, why don't you take a few minutes and introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, my name is Mari. I am the managing director of the Keystone Life Sci Collaborative. We are an industry partnership in southeastern Pennsylvania. We cover the 6 counties around Philadelphia, so Bucks, Berks, Chester, Delaware, Montgomery, and Philadelphia. It's an industry-driven partnership, so our industry members, we have 50 life sciences companies from across the region. They set my agenda, and I go after it. So a lot of our work is around talent, executive talent, sub-bachelor's talent, professional track talent, as well as awareness of life sciences careers and making sure that we're getting a good pool of candidates into those jobs.
It's interesting because many of the other life sciences groups are not that focused on people development. And this is exciting because if you don't have people, we can't do the work.
That's right.
So,
yeah, that's exactly right.
So that's an interesting. So what about your backstory? How did you get into the life sciences and biotech space?
Yeah, so my backstory is not actually in life sciences. It is in economic development and it's in planning and real estate. So spent 10 years as a consultant, mainly with eds and meds. Building coalitions of what we call anchor institutions to execute economic development strategies. So this partnership that I'm now leading is only is almost a year old. It's not very old, but when they launched and they saw how much enthusiasm was being generated from the life sciences companies in the region, they quickly realized they needed somebody to come on as a managing director to steer the group and really get stuff done.
And it's knowing what I know about the national and international landscape. It's getting competitive.
Yep.
So the infrastructure, building that base to grow everything else is getting even more challenged. So this is for you. It's pretty exciting, I'm sure.
It's so exciting. Yeah.
So if you had, let's go do a do-over. So you came out of in a different space, all right, but similar formula, what you're doing. If you had to go back and say, how would you have gotten into the space quicker? What could you have done differently? Or if you had to give someone advice and said, listen, how do I get into this biotech space? And this is a unique space within bio. You're not working at a lab bench.
Right.
You're not doing drug discovery. You're at a very different area. So how would you encourage other people to say, hey, this could be an option for me in a career?
So a couple of things, one of which is to get out there. We're actually working right now on what we call awareness campaigns for life sciences, where we're developing tools and strategies that can get out to schools, specifically jobs. We're running the 2nd annual Biotech Jobs Fair to create life science awareness around talent. So get out there, go to events, network. But there's also a lot of educational resources that our group is generating, including curriculum and tools to get people involved. The one thing I'm so surprised about, but really delighted with, is how welcoming and close-knit this community is. So as soon as I was plugged in, right in September of last year, immediately people were making connections, delighted that something was getting off the ground to really drive us forward as a region.
It's interesting. It's been described to me, Philly's a big city, but in the biotech community, it's like we're in a small town.
Yeah, that's right.
Because you go to events and you see people like you would, similar faces or friends of friends. So it's really like a community within it, which is kind of interesting.
Right, and everyone's willing to help out, make a connection. I think people are just have a lot of great ideas. What they don't have is somebody to run with them because they're busy running a life sciences company. So that's where our team really comes in. Actually, it is industry driven, so it's that agenda that they're setting. And we say, okay, you don't have the capacity to take this on, be our guidance, be our leaders, but we're going to drive this train in between meetings to get this thing actually up and running.
So you touched on like getting out there and meeting people. How do you stay abreast what's going on in the Philly or in the national scene or in the research? What are you reading? What are you listening to? What events are you going to?
Yeah, so I go obviously to BioBuzz events, right? I'm here today, thanks to a personal invitation from Brian Kennedy. I'm super happy to be here.
Yep.
We also have a core partners team that includes the Chamber of Commerce, LSPA, PIDC, and then Educational Partners, Manobianco Community College. They help us stay apprised of all of the events that are happening around the city and the region, really. So it's really a great network to be part of.
Interesting, because your role, it's deeper than just the life sciences PA or a biotech deeper. It's the people, it's the development, it's a much broader scale, which is, again, it's another, people outside who want to get in the industry, it's a whole different segment of the market.
That's right.
Career opportunity that could be there for them.
Yeah, and it was actually echoed a lot here tonight on one of the panels, is talent and capital. And actually we have two subgroups that work on that, but talent for us is really 3 different tiers of talent.
So it's Super Bowl weekend.
Yeah.
And we're in Philadelphia.
Yep,
so what is your prediction for the game?
Yeah, go Birds. I'm a lifelong Philadelphian. If I didn't say that, my dad would disown me. And I'm watching it with him.
And it's on, it'll be
yeah, right, exactly.
It never goes away. It never goes away.
No, it's in our bloodline, so absolutely.
Good. Yeah. Well, good. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you too.
Good. Thank you. Thanks. Before we get started, why don't you do introduction?
Yeah, Anthibi Paxinos, working with MISPRO, contract by Varium in Philadelphia. I'm very excited to be here tonight.
So before we get started into the rest of the conversation, how did you get into life sciences? What's the story behind that?
There's a story indeed. Started off in nursing school, did 3 years at Drexel University, decided that I wasn't really supporting patients in the way I wanted to. I didn't feel as fulfilled as I thought I would. I was helping one patient at a time during clinicals and just didn't feel like what I was placed here for. I wanted to help the broader population, so that's what encouraged my move to biotech, life sciences. My mom was in the industry, saw how much she was being fulfilled by her work, how many people she was helping, and it just seemed like a better path for me.
So did you switch majors at that time, and what did you pursue then?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, right.
Last year of college, switched my major to health administration, went on, got my master's at St. Joe's for health administration.
Good program there,
Yeah, it's been great.
But even there, so a lot of MHA people take one career track. You really went into the biotech versus hospital administration or some other facility.
Yeah, I worked at UPenn for quite a bit, so I got a better understanding of the hospital landscape. Saw there were some different options out there, and I went this route and haven't looked back. It's been fantastic.
So if you had to give advice to folks, like I think we share that we're not scientists, but we're in the field, what advice would you give to folks who are like thinking about a career into the biotech space as either a service provider or a researcher or anything? What kind of advice could you give folks to get in based on your experience?
Great question. I think building a really good network around you is super important. Having people in your network that motivate you, having good mentors, getting a better understanding of service providers and other routes, industries, could be a really good option. I think just being able to speak to other people about what they do, what they're interested in, what motivates them could really help guide you into the path and maybe into a nice route that provides you something special and that makes you want to work every day.
You talked about like the people, right? Going out meeting people. So how based on where do people find that? So if I'm in college now and I said, gee, I'm thinking, where would I go? What would I read? What would I listen to? Or where, what events could I attend?
Yeah, great question also there. I think when you're straight out of college or maybe just in the workforce, it's pretty difficult to navigate that and find those resources. I will say that I am part of Women in Bio. I'm the chair of the membership team right now, so a little plug right there. It's been a fantastic group as far as networking, meeting other women in the industry, and just getting a broader understanding of everything going on in Philadelphia. So I would say just expanding upon that and just get out there and speak to people.
Now, and the Philadelphia chapter is very active here. I know a lot of folks in that. Now, if you look at Philadelphia right now, and I know you're always out there at a lot of events, and Ms. Pro's taken a big position in Philadelphia. Why Philadelphia? Why now? Why Philly? Why now?
Born and raised in Philly, so I, bleed green. But I think also, there's been so many firsts in Philadelphia. We've spoken about it tonight throughout the panels here. It's just such an amazing city for life sciences. There's great talent. We have some of the best hospitals, some of the best education here. Why waste the talent, right? We're all here. We can all make it happen. I think, again, just going back to speaking to others, just getting out there and getting your voice heard and connecting with others, it just leads to a domino effect.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Everything you said, it's all within walking distance of here, which is that's always amazed me. From patient to the research bench, and we're all in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I think you already shared what your feelings are for this weekend. So we have the Super Bowl coming up. So what's your prediction for the Super Bowl?
I mean, go Birds. I would love to see other people climb the poles here.
right.
But yeah, hoping, the Eagles pull through. I know we've gotten to this point in many of our Philly sports and just haven't pulled all the way through. But I am
good feeling this weekend.
Hoping and praying that it leads to a nice W.
Good. Well, good. Hey, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good. So we're being joined by Heather Berger right now. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you very much.
Good. So
Pleasure
before we get started, why don't you do a quick introduction and then we could, have a conversation.
Sure. Heather Berger, PhD medicinal chemist by training, but that was a long time ago. Been on all parts of the ecosystem, kind of on the sell side, venture capital, and then I've been an operator for the past couple of years, working at Ilix Therapeutics as chief business officer and also helping to get some startups off the ground.
Excellent. So a question. Interesting, because you went from, seems like you went from bench to business and around. But let's go back to the beginning. What got you into the biotech and life sciences? What was behind that?
Fascination with the brain and learning, and I just always thought biology was really cool. And chemistry to me was a way to figure out biology from the bottom up.
Okay, so you early on as a child, you said, okay, you figured that algorithm out to get to, okay.
I was a nerd from day one. But,
so you've gone from, again, from the research side now into a commercial role. And if you had to give someone advice, right, who said, I'm thinking of, is life sciences and biotech an option for me, whether they're a scientist or not, what type of advice would you give to them?
Talk to people. Be open. I think there's so much that you can actually do in a life sciences company, even if you're not a scientist, right? So I think if you love the science, that's great. But even if you're interested in really having an impact in the world in general, there's finance functions. There's all these different things. And
so being part of the team that solves that or is part of
You
that.
know,
Yep.
is a cool thing. And I think we all become fluent in each other's languages the more we work together, right? So I would say just be curious. If you're curious about the world, if you're curious and want to make an impact, then it's something that you should just talk to people about.
So stay with that. If someone wanted to sort of, you talked about, hey, FaceTime, meet people. So if someone wants to get a better handle of what's happening in the space, what should they be listening to, reading, and what events they should be attending? Any ideas around that you could share?
I guess that's a good question on where you are in your career, right? I know there's organizations, I think there's a chapter in Philly like Life Science Cares. They do internships over the summer, and you don't even have to be on the science side of things. As far as reading, there's a lot of podcasts out there. Luke Timmerman, who has done a lot of these guided hikes with a lot of scientists. I was on one of his hikes, so I'm a little biased, but talks to tons of really interesting people, finds out how they got their starts, how they got to do things. Events like the one that we're here now, the BioBuzz. There's tons of organizations. I don't know if Biocom is out here.
So this is great because it's educational and there's networking. So you're getting a combination. You're hearing what's the latest and greatest, but then you're getting meeting people behind that. Yeah. So it's kind of exciting.
And I think the meeting people, people love to talk about themselves, right? So you can always go and
Especially
ask them what they do.
Yeah.
I know. And then you never know who you're going to meet along the way.
Yeah.
It might not be that person, but it's just being open to those connections and the opportunities, I think is important.
So we're in Philadelphia right now and at this event. So what you're hearing, what your experience, why Philadelphia and why now? Why Philly and why now?
It's a good question. There's so much here, especially around cell therapies, gene therapy. There's so much innovation, so much technology. And I think what the area needs to do is try to build that critical mass. I think there's the entrepreneurial spirit is here. I think we need to create sort of the ecosystem where if one thing fails because you're going after a big idea, that's sort of a badge of honor, and then you can move on to the next, right?
And,
so it's part of
Celebrate
its momentum.
Your failure. I agree with that. Yeah, that's a big point. That's a good point.
Yeah. So I think it's an exciting place to be. I think doubling down on the expertise here and saying, yes, we do other things, but this is what we do. And if you want to be, the person in this industry, this is where you should get your training.
Yeah. So when you say training, it's from the beginning, from twofold. It's getting the student or into that career path because this is the place, but then the investor to come here because this is the place. You're going to have both. Okay. So the supply and demand curve of drug development.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think you can get investors from even the neighboring areas to think about here because this is the expertise and this is the only place you want to build a company. You
and I know
that.
you're wearing that hat now with this company. Has the market changed with investment in Philadelphia? What I've heard is that it's getting better. That was a gap several years ago that there wasn't the investor community. Now the eyes are on Philadelphia because of what's happening.
Yeah, I think it's gotten a bit better. I do agree with that, and I think there's more of that interplay between the folks at Penn and sort of their venture arms, and it's a work in progress. I think there's more that needs to be done, but I think it's on the right trajectory. You just got to get more folks in.
So the last question: we're in Philadelphia, and it's Super Bowl weekend. What's your prediction for the game?
Ooh, I'm going to get in trouble. I'm a native New Yorker, so I don't know if I'm allowed to even answer that question. But, I think the Chiefs have had their moment. It would be fun to see Philadelphia win this weekend.
Well, good. Hey, good joining us today. Appreciate it. Good.
My pleasure.
Good. Thank you. Good.
Thank you so much.
So we're being joined by Adam Clark with the Emily Whitehead Foundation. Thanks for joining us today, Adam.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you,
it. Good. So, one of the things, first question, as we were talking before, how did you get into life sciences? What's the story there?
Actually, I have a pretty unique path to life science. I spent 20 years in live event ticketing and kind of basing everything I had, anchoring on the fan experience, kind of building distribution strategies for Major League Baseball, teams like the New England Patriots, and over COVID, while I was wanting to make a pivot, George Eastwood, the executive, at the time, the board chair of the Emily Whitehead Foundation, through several pitches, told me everything that you know about the fan experience, I need you to port it to the patient experience. And data is my through line, so everything that all of the data within the ecosystem, all connecting and George had been in advanced therapies for years at that point, where I spent 20 years elsewhere, he spent 20 years on this. And so he saw the connections where I didn't. Several years later, we're building a CDMO together. And now we're both working at the Emily Whitehead Foundation.
Wow, that's exciting. So that's a shift.
Yeah, oh yeah, big time.
Excellent. We have some similar traits because I did a switch outside of the I didn't have a biotech background and fell into it, and been doing that for 30 years. So
They say once you do, you never
I
look
know
back.
it's now go back to someone. If you can go back and give yourself advice when you were in the entertainment, the sports entertainment, to say, if you want to get into the biotech or life sciences, what advice would you give to yourself back then?
Oh, and I had to constantly, I constantly gave myself this advice in real time, and I still do to this day, and that's everything's a widget. And every widget has stakeholders, and as long as you understand who needs to speak to who and how and when, and what data needs to connect across, you can get drowned out in the science. As a non-technical person, as this industry is so scientific, you can get drowned out in that. And for me, it get really freaked out. I was building myself glossaries left and right, and for me, it was just remembering that everything's a widget, and you know how to deal with widgets.
It's funny when you said that. I now make the connection to your previous career to this career.
Yeah.
It's about building a fan base and then delivering a solution. It's a
Sort of.
similar,
It's taking the experience of a fan and being able to utilize data to cater to that fan in a really unique way. Now take that idea and put it the patient in place of the fan.
That's right.
And you want this ecosystem building off of the experience of that patient.
That's a good, So it's not that big of a leap, though, I guess.
I guess not.
If it's a widget, you're right. It's good.
Yes, yeah.
And we're in Philadelphia,
Yeah.
right? And you guys are based in Pennsylvania.
We are, yeah.
So why Philadelphia and why now?
Well, this is the birthplace of advanced therapies. I mean, with Emily Whitehead, who the patient that started our foundation, was the first recipient of CAR T as a pediatric patient. This is the birthplace of advanced therapies, and I think the amazing doctors and minds in this town are pushing the science and the industry forward every day. I mean, this is the place for advanced therapies.
Yeah, it's a great time for Philly right now.
Absolutely.
And for persons either in the industry or looking to develop their career here, anything you recommend, whether it be books, podcasts, networking events, that you could say, listen, if you really want to dive into this industry and be successful and understand that you should be either reading this or listening to that or attending a show or something. Anything you can recommend?
The conferences here, both by Facilitate and Hanson Wade, have been super helpful in understanding kind of how to maneuver in this space and what to pay attention to. As a previous layman, they really helped me along, I'd say.
Good. Yeah, and the conferences, it's getting that FaceTime too. It's not only what you hear from the conference, but meeting people and the osmosis you can get there from
innovation by osmosis is a real thing. Yeah.
So we're coming into Super Bowl weekend.
Yeah.
Right. And any advice, or any insights or predictions that you can make on who's going to win the Super Bowl?
This is a really tough one for me. I'm a Boston guy.
Yeah,
I was previously partners with the New England Patriots. I've worked 8 Super Bowls with them in the NFL, and it's very hard for me to say right now that I'm rooting for the Philadelphia Eagles.
This will be on the internet, so I just want to let you know that you have friends and family that might be.
They'll be all right, and I don't have any predictions. I have predictions that we'll be there again someday.
Okay, all right, understood. Well said. Well, Adam, hey, thanks for joining us. We appreciate
Steve,
it.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, great talking to you.
Thanks. We're being joined by Mary Genevieve. Welcome.
Hi, welcome.
Good,
Thank you.
Good. So I guess just to get started, why don't you do a quick introduction about yourself and who you are? Sure.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Genevieve Carty, and I have been at Drexel University for 17 years now, believe it or not. I am lucky to be a part of the College of Medicine, the Department of Microbiology and Immunology, and I am the Director of Education, Innovation, and Strategic Partnerships. I also serve as the Director of Business Development for the Institute of Molecular Medicine and Infectious Disease, and do a few other things as well based in the area of cell and gene therapy.
Wow, it's a broad brush, but a great institution. But so give a little background. How did you get into the life sciences? What's your backstory on that?
Sure. So I have been a graduate higher education administrator in the sciences for, like I said, almost 17 years. And I love being in the science field because it is literally life-changing. I mean, with cell and gene therapy, we're making the blind see again. And to be part of something that miraculous is inspiring. And I have a sister with a rare genetic disorder as well. And so for me, growing up in and out of hospitals with her, it's something that has always been part of my life. I have a brother who's a doctor, a neonatologist. I have a brother who's a nurse.
Oh, wow. So,
we all kind of wound up in the
so you have the
medical field.
classic nature nurture. You have both.
Both.
So think about either in Philadelphia, whether someone in high school, someone in college right now. If you had to think about how you land, where you are today, with a great institution, with a great responsibility in an exciting field, what advice would you give to them to help sort of accelerate that effort to get into the space?
Sure. I do a lot of career counseling, and I always say to people, you learn as much from the jobs you don't like as the jobs that you do like. Yeah. So don't ever be upset if you're in the wrong field or have the wrong position. Just go ahead and learn your lesson and move on, and you can learn so much from those experiences. When it comes to mentoring career progression, I always invite people to go to networking events because talking to people is something that cannot be replaced by any interaction online at all. And so when you talk to people, you can ask them, what do they love about their job? What do they not love about their job? And you're never going to have something that you love every day. But if you love it most days and it gives you personal fulfillment, you can go with that. You can also never be afraid to switch careers a little bit. I mean, I've always been in higher ed, and I have a master's in higher ed, but I also have a master's in integrative health, and I'm getting a doctorate in health science. So I didn't start off really in the sciences. In fact, my undergrad is in philosophy. But over time, I navigated myself over towards the science because that's where I felt most drawn. So people think that professionals have a very direct linear path from A to B, and that's what success looks like. That is not what success looks like. You can talk to anybody.
No, there's a lot of meandering and paths and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, very circuitous.
But you said something that's real important is the face-to-face, because I know not being a scientist, if I wrote a research paper, it's very hard to understand what's the end game. But if you sat down with the research and say, could you explain to me what's the downstream? And they're very good at clarifying it. So I agree 100% of getting that face time and networking with people. And I think that's why with BioBuzz, and I think what they're doing here today is great to get these smaller groups together where people can talk and collaborate. So you've been Philly, I mean, and Drexel's a major, institution in Philly. So why Philadelphia and why now?
So the energy here is palpable in Philadelphia, specifically where we sit, where Drexel sits in University City, which is now kind of bifurcated into Schuylkill Yards and U City as well. With all of the startups, with all of the events, of course, the undergrad and graduate students provide a wonderful energy, whether it's Drexel or Penn. It's something that I've really capitalized on. I co-host a monthly cell and gene therapy happy hour with Dr. Kara Spiller of the School of Biomedical Engineering. And that's something, with my title of strategic partnerships, I'm always looking for partnerships, whether it's internal to Drexel or external. I actually, with BioBuzz and CYTO and B Labs and all of them, I like to partner with them as well. But we have this happy hour where it is agnostic to whatever industry, whatever university you're from. We have people from Penn, Drexel, Temple. We have people from hospital and healthcare systems, from pharmaceutical companies. And we all come together around drinks, non-alcoholic or alcoholic, whatever you want. And we just talk about the science. And I think things like that, because we don't have any overarching leadership in terms of, this is X, Y, Z in order to progress the field. We have a lot of startup leadership organizations.
Yeah, but the way you describe that happy hour, it to me, it gives you a really snapshot of what Philadelphia is from patient to research and everything in between, So this is, we're in Philly, and this is Super Bowl weekend.
Yes.
What's your prediction?
So I don't follow sports. I hope everyone has fun. But I guess I'll say go Birds, because if not, I have a lot of friends who
There
will
you
be
go.
very mad at me.
This will be on social media, and you will have a challenge with that.
Yes.
Well, good. Thanks for joining us today. It was good talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, Crispell.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us today.
Of course.
Good. So I know we were talking before, but why don't you share your story of, how did you get into life sciences? What's that story?
For sure. So I was actually, once I graduated, I went to Temple University, and I graduated
in
International Business and Marketing as my undergrad, and my master's is Master of Liberal Arts with a focus on international relations. So once I graduated, I was very lucky and got a job at Temple University right away. I worked for the Vice Provost office. So I spent the next 15 years working in administration, events, fundraising. It was really amazing to be around just educators and research and just being able to support the students reach their goals, whether that was raising money for scholarships. My goal was always to be able to help the next generation.
So your hands in a few different...
which is really exciting. But after 16 years of that, it was really nice to kind of pivot. And I'm the Associate Director of Community Experience and Partner Relations at B Labs, and we were built by Brandywine Realty Trust, and we were powered by the Pennsylvania Biotech Center. So we actually opened in the Sierra Center building January 2022, and I started March 2022.
Oh, wow. So you've been getting,
Yeah, it was just really exciting to, after doing something for a long time, to come into a space that was new, and my team and I, which at the time was 3 or 4, now we're 6, to help kind of bring this idea and build up. It was very exciting to me. And to be able to support, even in like a minor way, scientists that are doing breakthrough, that are advancing medicines, that are helping people.
I'm not a scientist either, and being a supporting character is kind of exciting.
It is
now,
so
I want to go
exciting.
back. You talked about, you were in administration and an academic, so you were, because Temple's diverse, they have a lot of different type of research.
Yeah.
What, if you had to give yourself, if you had to go back in time and give yourself recommendations to say, hey, how do I get into this biotech life sciences? What advice would you have given to yourself?
I think maybe exploring a little bit more of the portfolio that Temple has to offer, right? I was in the Vice Provost office and I focused on a certain area, and I think maybe being more involved with the College of Engineering or, science, and just being out there. But sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So just the knowledge of understanding that this world was out there and that I can provide a more supporting role than I was playing before was really exciting.
So being at undergrad, then graduate school, then Temple as an employee, and now at B Labs, why Philadelphia? Why now?
Why not Philadelphia? And I say this as a person raised in New York City who lived in Boston for a beat. And Philadelphia has been my home for so long. And getting into this industry was really interesting because coming from higher ed, switching to biotech, I relied a lot on the ecosystem to kind of teach me. And I spent a lot of the time just learning about what are the missing parts and what can I do to support? I spent a lot of time learning and building relationships. And everyone in Philadelphia is so eager to see each other succeed for the ultimate goal of
Very
curing
supportive.
patients.
It's real supportive.
And Emily Whitehead, that's a perfect example. The first pediatric patient to receive CAR T-cell therapy that was developed at Penn and Shop, which you can actually walk to both of those places from where we are right now, right? So this whole idea of collaboration in Philadelphia is very unique to Philadelphia. And I think that it's the way that we're going to get things done.
So I know before we started, we talked a little bit about, where do we get information from? And you mentioned something was interesting. So you're saying it's more one-on-one. So your suggestion could be, hey, talk to people, get FaceTime.
Yeah,
right?
I really, I'm an extrovert, so it doesn't come that hard to me, but I love meeting new people. I think that in this ecosystem, especially as not the scientist at the bench, right? You want to figure out, how can I support you? And that is what my team and I strive for, to really figure out how can we support the scientists so they can focus on the science. What are those missing parts? It takes a village, and it takes someone that.
Because they're also making a transition. They're going from bench quasi to business, because now it's a very different.
Exactly.
It's not publishing a paper; it's getting a therapy into the market. So it's a very different.
Yeah, but it's also other kind of resources. Just figuring out, like meeting people on an individual level, right, and figuring out what is it that you need in order to like succeed. That could look like very differently for everyone, and just providing that support is really important.
You mentioned that you lived in New York, Boston, and now Philadelphia.
And Dominican Republic, yes.
Oh, okay. So that, but they don't have a football team, Dominican. Last time, maybe.
Oh,
good baseball players.
baseball,
The good baseball
yes,
players. But probably not. So this is Super Bowl weekend.
Oh
right?
my God, yes. We're all very
The
excited.
question I have for you is, what's your prediction for?
My prediction is Philadelphia Eagles. I gotta say, I gotta bleed green all the way.
There you go. Good.
I love watching them play, and if you're in Philadelphia, like even this week, everyone's so excited and so energized.
The cork's gonna
And
pop.
yeah, we're all rooting.
Well, good. Well,
for
Crystal, hey, thanks
Philadelphia.
for joining us. We appreciate
Of
it. Good,
course.
good. Thank you.
Thank you.